Hey everyone. Alright, let's go ahead and let's get started. Alright, for your homework, you have on page 132 the thought provoker, and then on page 138, 1 through 4. So let's go over the thought provoker first. Why did you change to clean clothes each day? Remember, because your clothes, they can have bacteria, and they can, because you sweat in your clothes, they can start to harbor the smell as well. So dirty clothes begin to smell and can harbor the bacteria that prevents healthy skin. So come you want to change into clean clothes every single day. Alright, and then also on page 138, you had 1 through 4. So number 1, define disease. This is any condition that interferes with homeostasis or normal body functions. Number 2, what type of pathogen reproduces by causing a cell to produce copies of the pathogen? That is a virus. And then number 3, which major group of diseases is not caused by pathogens? Those are non-infectious diseases. We'll talk about those a little bit later on. And then number 4, what is an infected animal that can spread the disease? That is called a vector. Alright, for your classwork, what I want you to do is I want you to go back a little bit, since this is more of the more recent stuff. I want you to copy down the bold terms and the definitions from pages 125 to page number 131. We covered most of page 131, so I'll finish talking about it today. But I want you to copy down those bold terms and their definitions 3 times. So that'll help you to kind of get started thinking about it, and so that way you will start working on memorizing, not just for quizzes, but then also for your test coming up. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and do that, and then unpause the video whenever you're done. Alright, assuming that you're back now, let's go over it. Alright, what's the difference between anaerobic and aerobic exercise? Remember, which one has a raised heart rate? Aerobic. So anaerobic requires physical strength, and it does require speed and strength, but it doesn't raise your heart rate. It doesn't make your heart beat faster. It doesn't make you have to breathe harder. Well, aerobic does. Aerobic exercises, these are the ones where it makes your heart beat faster, and it makes you have to take in more air, so it makes you breathe harder as well for it. What do we call that heart rate that you're supposed to maintain for 10 minutes in order to have good aerobic exercise? What do we call that? Your training heart rate or your target heart rate. Make sure I didn't skip anything. Nope, I didn't. Alright, so what do you call it whenever you work out your muscles and they physically get larger? Hypertrophy. And then what's it called whenever you don't use them and they start to shrink and go away? Atrophy. Perfect. Alright, so you didn't have to define all the headings for like the warm-ups and the stretches, so I'm going to skip those. But they're just pointing out those are some good things for you to do to warm up your body so that way you don't accidentally pull a muscle or damage your muscles. Alright, as a teenager, how many hours of sleep do you need each night? 8 to 10. So you need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep every single night. So if you're really tired, that might be a reason why. So try to get some good sleep, particularly this weekend. Don't just play video games the whole time. Make sure you're getting some rest. Alright, so we talked about your appearance yesterday. Does your appearance matter? Yes, it does, because the Bible talks about it, how since the Holy Spirit lives inside of you, you should do your best to be a good example of God and of the Holy Spirit and of Jesus. Because remember, the other world can't see God, they can only see you. So you need to be a good example with your character, and then also physically as well. Alright, what do you call the glands that help your body to stay cool? I can't really describe them any more than that without giving them away. Your sweat glands, good job. How often should you bathe? Every single day. I know that feels kind of silly to ask that in junior high, but you gotta know it. And hopefully, I know most of you probably already know that anyway. Alright, what do you call the glands that make oil? They're in your face, a lot of them, and then in your hair. And in a lot of other places, but we associate them with mainly your face and your hair. Sebaceous glands. So oil glands, did you make a note of their real name? Well, their more official name, sebaceous glands. What do we call the oil that they make? Sebum. So just be careful as you're going through that. How many times should you wash your face a day as a teenager with some special cleansers? 2 to 3 times a day. You should wash your face probably whenever you get up in the morning and then before you go to bed each night. So it helps your face to not have outbreaks or infections. What do we call it whenever you have the glands become clogged and infected with bacteria and dirt? And so they can cause those raised bumps on your face. What do we call those? Pimples. And then what is the condition whenever you have a bunch of infections? So whenever you have a bunch of clogged sebaceous glands or a bunch of pimples, what do we call that? Acne. Who's the doctor you can go see if you have too much on your face? And maybe your parents just want to take you just to get some extra help. Dermatologist. Make a note for all those things. Alright, We talked about sunscreen yesterday. What are the rays that the sun produces that can cause sunburns? Don't just say UV rays. What's their full name? Ultraviolet radiation. So UV rays, UV radiation, then do know the full name, ultraviolet radiation. Alright, so what does the FPS on a sunscreen stand for? This tells you basically how strong the sunscreen is. The SPF stands for sun protection factor, so make note for that. What should be the minimum level you should get for sunscreen? Like what's the number with it? SPF 15. Now, if you're more fair skinned like me, I'm pretty fair skinned or pretty pale. And so because of that, whenever I start going outside, I have to wear stronger sunscreens until the pigment in my skin starts to produce more natural sunscreen. Remember, what's the pigment in your skin that produces the dark color? Melanin. Good job. So that's the reason why if you go outside a lot, your skin will naturally start to get a little bit darker if you are a pale skinned person. That's part of the reason why, because it's trying to build up that natural sunscreen. Alright, what's something else you can do to protect your body if you're going outside a lot? Wear sunglasses, wear a hat, maybe wear long sleeves to help protect your skin if you're going to be out for a very long time. Alright, when should you wash your hands? A bunch, but when your book just points out them just frequently, but after you go to the bathroom is a good way to do it, before you eat, but if you sneeze or cough, you want to wash your hands frequently. Now, you want to keep your fingernails neat and trim, so that way they don't get broken and jagged, and besides, if your fingernails, if they look all torn or messed up, they look kind of gross, so that's the reason why. You want to keep them neat and clean. What do we call the what do you call the layer of dead cells at the base of your nail? That's your cuticle. And then what do we call it whenever you have splits in the cuticle? It hurts, but what do we call those? Hangnails. Good job. Alright, so some of the other bowl terms we'll go over as we go over this material. So just make a note for that. Oh, I just got ingrown toenails. So how do you not get an ingrown toenail on your foot? You want to cut them pretty much straight across with a slight curve, and you want to do it after a shower or after your bath. That's whenever your toenails and your fingernails are a little bit softer and more pliable. So that's the reason why you want to cut them straight across with a slight curve, but you don't want to cut them too short, because you don't want to have ingrown toenails. They hurt and they're a pain. Alright, so let's get into it on page 131. Alright, so the next thing your book gets into, it starts talking about your healthy smile. Now, we've already talked about this, I think, a little bit. Talking about how to keep your teeth healthy. So it's just going through it kind of basically for it. So clean, healthy teeth are essential because your adult teeth have to last at least the rest of your life. Most of you at this point have probably lost all of your baby teeth, and so because of that, you have your permanent adult teeth already inside of your mouth. Now, you don't get any more teeth. Once you have your adult teeth, typically, that's it. There are some rare exceptions where you can have sometimes a tooth will grow back, but that's really rare. You shouldn't count on that. But as you get older, you're going to get your wisdom teeth come in, and that's up to your parents to decide if they want you to have your wisdom teeth or not. Wisdom teeth typically cause some problems. That's probably the reason why your parents go ahead and take them out. But your adult teeth are supposed to last your entire life. You don't get any more teeth. So you might know you maybe only have 1 or 2 teeth left coming in at this point in your life. Or you might think, okay, I have my wisdom teeth, but that's it. Once they come in, there's no more teeth coming into your mouth. That's probably the reason why you want to protect them, because if they fall out, that's it. Your body's not going to make any more for you. So that is it for us. That's probably the reason why we have to take care of them. Alright, so your book points out, protecting adult teeth prevents the most common disease in man. We actually consider cavities a type of disease. So make a note of that. This is the most common disease in man. Tooth decay or dental caries or cavities. So tooth decay, because your teeth are literally rotting or being eaten away. Dental caries is the technical name for them. Caries has to do with the idea of a hole. So cavities is what we just call them in day-to-day speech. But dental caries is the technical name for it. This is whenever you build up plaque on your teeth, and the plaque starts to eat through your teeth. Remember, there's the 3 layers. If you're going from outside onto the inside of your tooth, what are they? Right, you have the enamel, then you have the dentin, then you have the pulp on the inside of it. So that's whenever you're going outside towards the inside of your tooth. So the plaque starts to eat through your tooth. I think we talked about this previously whenever we were talking about your teeth, about who's had cavities and who doesn't have cavities. I have gotten 1 cavity in my entire life, and I hated it. It was in one of my back molars. The sealant, sometimes the dentist, he'll put this white sealant on the inside of your molars to help kind of seal off the ridges on the inside. Well, the sealant in my tooth got a crack in it, and so even though I was flossing and brushing, because there was a crack in it and I couldn't get down there, bacteria could still get on the inside. So it made a small cavity on the inside of my tooth, and it was not fun getting that cleaned out. Some of you might have had cavities before, and you know they're not fun. Some of you might not have never had, some of you might have not had a cavity yet, and you don't want one. So you want to try to keep your teeth as clean, and you want them to last as long as possible. So your book points out, tooth decay begins whenever the bacteria inside your mouth digest sugars, creating acid. The acid attacks the teeth and removes the enamel, causing a cavity. This is one reason why your dentist tells you to floss and brush. You probably go to the dentist once or twice a year. That's fairly normal. So once or twice a year for it. And that's when the dentist asks you, do you floss and brush? Brushing, you want to brush your teeth at least twice a day. Now your book recommends about 3 times. And sometimes if you have very active saliva where it breaks down the sugar, or breaks down the food into sugars, or sometimes if you drink a lot of sugary foods throughout the day, like coffee or caffeine, then that can cause your teeth to stain or can have sugar sitting on your teeth. And so because of that, you might need to brush your teeth more. You want to floss so that way you don't get food stuck in between your teeth, and sometimes your toothbrush has a hard time getting in between your teeth as well. Plus, flossing helps you to remove food caught there, or there are other things like sugars caught down in between your teeth as well. So sometimes you should floss and brush before bedtime. You want to remove the plaque. This is a thin, sticky film formed by bacteria in the mouth. So the thin, sticky film formed by bacteria in the mouth, that's the plaque. So make sure that you want to remove that. You don't want to fall asleep with that on your teeth, because it can rot or start to eat through your teeth while you're sleeping. So that's part of the reason why your book points out you want to brush probably whenever you get up in the morning, and then before you go to bed at night, you really want to brush your teeth so that way you're not going to bed with all that sitting on your teeth. Alright, so healthy smile, you want it to last as long as possible. So we've already talked about a lot of your teeth with the digestive system, so your book just gives you some practical hints and some hints and tips to help you out. Alright, your hair. Now, oops, I forgot this picture. So dental caries, make a note for that technical name for cavities, and then plaque. That's the thin, sticky film that you want to get rid of because you don't want a cavity. Alright, hair. So your hair we associate more with young ladies because young ladies like to grow out their hair more, but young gentlemen have it as well, and you want to keep your hair healthy. So your hair grows from hair follicles, so make a note for that. That's the tubes that lie in the dermis that manufacture your hair. You have sebaceous glands next to them. Now remember, sebaceous glands make what? Oil, but what type of oil? Sebum. Good job. That's the reason why your hair might be more oily than somebody else's hair. There's different types of hair types, like if you have curly hair or straight hair, or you might have like the more thin kind of kinky hair. It just depends on what type of hair genetics that you have. And so because of that, your book gives you some guidelines over how to protect it, but because of your genetics, you might have different hair treatments just to help your hair stay healthy for it. And you want your hair, if you want to grow it out, you have to take care of it. Now, your book points out keratin. This is a protein that gives nails their strength and hardness. This is also what makes up your hair as well for it. So the hair itself is built from the epidermal cells that have been completely filled with keratin. So you have keratin in your fingernails and in your toenails, but it's also what is on the inside of your hair to make your hair a little bit thicker and a little bit more sturdy as well for it. Now, your book points out it should be kept clean and free of oil by regular shampooing. Now again, this does vary from person to person, so don't think, oh, I have to wash my hair every single day. Okay, it does vary from person to person. Most people, if you are lighter skinned or you're of European or Caucasian descent, you probably want to wash your hair every single day or every other day. That's just for your genetics and how your hair makes oil. Because of that, you probably want to wash it every single day or every other day. My hair makes a lot of oil. I know I have a bunch of junk in my hair right now to make it stand up and spike because I like my hair doing that. But I have to wash my hair every single day. If I didn't wash my hair every single day, you would know because it looks gross and it would look nasty. Some of you might wash your hair every other day and your hair looks fine. It still looks okay. It doesn't look gross or wet or oily. Some of you, if you are of African American descent, your hair is a little bit different textured, and so because of that, you might have to wash your hair less frequently. You also might have to put special conditioner or creams in it. So it does vary from person to person and with your own genetics It just depends on what genes or genetics you have with your hair type. So if your book's just telling you, it just recommends, basically you want to keep your hair clean. So based on your genetics, most people, again, depending on your descent, you probably want to wash it every day, but again, it just depends on genetics. So it's just giving you just a good average for it. Alright, so basically you just want your hair to be neat and clean and to have a good appearance. That's the main thing that your book's pointing out. Alright, so just make a note, keratin, that's the substance on the inside of your hair that gives its strength and its firmness, and it comes from hair follicles, and it also has those sebaceous glands around it. Alright, so let's get into the next section, talking about diseases. Your book's kind of shifting gears now, and it's talking more about health in particular. Alright, so a disease is any condition that interferes with homeostasis. Remember what homeostasis is. We kind of talked about this loosely already. This is the normal functioning of your body. So your normal day-to-day activities, your cells carrying on metabolism. So having that good internal temperature, having the oxygen to order carry on metabolism and give off carbon dioxide, to just your normal day-to-day activity. So if the disease is any condition that interferes with homeostasis, a disease is anything that messes up your normal internal body functions. So that's the ideas behind a disease. Alright, there are two major types of diseases that your book introduces now. You have infectious diseases or non-infectious diseases. And infectious disease is something you can catch, maybe from a person, maybe from an animal, but it's something to where you can catch this, or you might can just catch it just from like touching a doorknob and having the bacteria on the doorknob. So an infectious disease is something something you can catch specifically. Now there is a whole other category that has to do with can you catch it from a person to person, but this is just the idea of infectious, can you catch it from something? Alright, a pathogen is a disease-causing organism. Your book's already used the term pathogen with your immune system, but now it's officially telling you here's what a pathogen means. So patho has to do with disease, gen means producing. So the name pathogen actually means disease-producing or disease-causing. So just make a note of what pathogen is. So infectious disease, this is whenever you have something like a pathogen inside of your body and it's causing this disease. Alright, your book points out there are two major ways you can get a pathogen, or two major types of pathogens. There's bacteria and viruses. The microscopic unicellular bacteria are the most widespread organisms in all of God's creation. So make a note that they're unicellular. What does that mean? I mean, your book tells you, but you should note that division. You should note the definition. That means that they're one cell, so unicellular. And these are the most widely spread organisms in God's creation. Now, some of them are helpful. You have bacteria that live in your intestines, and they're supposed to be there. But some bacteria that are not good for you, they can cause diseases like strep throat, tuberculosis, pneumonia. So, your book points out that some of them are bad. So, some of them are good, but some of them are disease-causing. We call the disease-causing ones pathogenic. So, make a note of that. So, pathogenic, these are the ones that act as a pathogen. They cause strep throat, tuberculosis, and pneumonia. I'm assuming most of you have had strep throat before. If you've had it, it's not fun. That's the test that the doctors, they take the swab and they scrape the back of your throat to check to see is the bacteria living on the back of your throat. You'll know you have strep throat because it hurts to swallow. That's a major sign for it. So if your throat starts to hurt really, really, really bad, to where it feels like needles from the back of your throat, that's probably strep throat, not all the time, but it's a good indication of, might need to go to the doctor and get some medicine because he might need to check to see is that strep throat. So again, not fun if you ever had it. Tuberculosis, this one's a really deadly one. Thankfully, this one is not nearly as common today, but it has to do with your lungs. A major sign of tuberculosis that people, they'll start to cough, then they'll start coughing up blood. And so that was a major sign of, oh, you have this super deadly disease, so tuberculosis. We don't have this as much today, thank goodness, because this one is really, really dangerous. Alright, and then the last one we're talking about is pneumonia. You've probably had pneumonia before, particularly if you have asthma. Now, pneumonia is whenever in a lot of cases, at least for me, because I've got pneumonia a lot, because I've had asthma when I was growing up. I would have allergies, and my snot basically would drain into my lungs while I slept, and so I would get fluid buildup on the inside of my lungs, and I would get pneumonia that way. There's a couple other ways you can get pneumonia, but that was the way that I always got it. So, make a note though, pneumonia can be caused by bacteria as well. So, Make a note on the bacteria. They can cause these diseases. So strep, tuberculosis, pneumonia. Your book points out they can attack the body in several different ways by stealing cells' nutrients, producing toxins, turn body tissues into battlegrounds. So bacteria basically just hinder your body's function, and that's part of the reason why they're considered a pathogen. Viruses are a little bit different. So we'll come back and talk about non-infectious diseases in a second. But your book has this picture on the next page. So viruses are the smallest pathogens. They're basically just a packet of DNA, which we've talked about DNA already. DNA, remember, is your genetic information. So they're basically just a packet of DNA enclosed in a genetic capsid. So make a note for that. So a virus consists of a genetic structure called a capsid. Basically, it's just a tube that kind of just surrounds the DNA. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think what would be a good example for y'all. Alright, I used to have, you might know what a Polly Pocket is when I was growing up. It was a locket basically, and you could stick these little bitty miniature figures on the inside of it. I don't know if they have too many things like that today, but that's the idea for it, where the capsid is this container, kind of like a box, and you have your DNA on the inside of it. So that's the idea of a virus. It has the genetic information on the inside of a container of this capsid. Your book points out that influenza, colds, stomach bugs, and chicken pox, these are all called by viruses. So going through them really quick. So influenza, that's just the flu. That's part of the reason why you can get a flu shot to help your body have practice fighting it. The common cold, there is no cold shot because there's so many different types of cold viruses. Your body has a hard time recognizing one cold virus from another cold virus. So that's because you have to get every single one for your body to recognize. Oh, that's dangerous too. So influenza, colds. Most stomach bugs are caused by a virus. In some cases, you eat a bad food and you get sick that way from it. But your book pointing out that they can be caused by a virus. If it's caused by a virus, we call it gastroenteritis technically. So gastroenteritis is a technical name for the stomach bug that's caused by a virus. But in some cases, you just eat bad food and you'll throw up that way from it. Chicken pox. We've talked about this previously, particularly with vaccinations, but that's part of the reason as to how come you can get a shot for chicken pox. So your body has practiced fighting it, so if you ever are exposed to it, your body either won't catch it because your body knows how to fight it off now, so it'll hurry up and defeat it, or your body will have an easier time fighting it. Chicken pox, if you don't know what it is, it's whenever you get those raised itchy bumps all over your body. Typically you get it whenever you're younger. It lasts about a week, so it's not super dangerous, it's just not fun. As a side note, coronavirus or COVID-19 is also a virus, and that's part of the reason as to how come people are working on making a vaccine for it now. And people are being careful as well, just because they don't want to get sick. Alright, so make it over this. Viruses are not considered living things because they do not have cells and do not grow, respond to changes, or carry on metabolism. And of course, the brain bite. Viruses are so small that thousands could fit at the period at the end of the sentence. They are tiny. So you might be wondering, well, okay, well, why are they not considered alive? It's because the virus, basically, it doesn't do anything if it's just sitting on a surface. It doesn't have a cell, it doesn't grow, doesn't respond to changes, doesn't carry on metabolism. It just sits there like a rock, and it doesn't do anything. But if it gets on the inside of your cell, once it enters your host cell, basically it becomes alive at that point. It wakes up enough, and that's whenever it starts to take over your cell. So it acts asleep or it acts dead until it gets on the inside of your body. And then all of a sudden, oh, now it's going to start doing things. So the virus enters your host cell, the virus releases its stored DNA, and then your body gets confused over which DNA it's supposed to make properly. And so because of that, it starts taking the virus's DNA and starts making what the virus is telling it to make. It starts following the virus's genetic information, not the cell's genetic information. So the virus information reprograms cells to make the virus parts, and so it can make more of the virus that way. And the new viruses are assembled in the cell, and then they can leave and go infect other cells. Basically, a virus is like a hacker where it can take over your cells and get them to make more of the virus. So that's probably the reason why some doctors, and there's an argument over, do we call a virus actually alive or not? because the virus acts completely dead. If you had a virus sitting on a doorknob or on a desk, it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. It's only whenever you touch it, and then once you touch your mouth or your nose or your eyes, and it gets on the inside of your body, now it wakes up, and now it starts to take over your body's cells. So that's part of the reason as to how come they can make vaccinations for viruses, because they can use weaker versions of the virus, or in some cases completely dead versions, so that way your body has practice fighting them. So just make a note, that's part of the reason why some scientists or some doctors debate over whether or not a virus is really alive or not, because it doesn't act alive until it gets on the inside of a cell, and then it starts to do things. So make a note for that. So viruses. So make a note for that. So they can only reproduce on the inside of a living cell, and they are the smallest pathogens. All right, back to non-infectious disease really quick. So, oops, wrong direction. So a non-infectious disease, these are diseases you can't catch. You can't catch this from somebody. Your book lists off some of them, like lupus, that's one of them, Heart's disease, sickle cell anemia, diabetes, and scurvy. There's actually a bunch of them. Your book doesn't list them all out though, because that would take too long. Other examples are like asthma. Now I had asthma growing up, and that was just how my body responded and how my lungs responded to certain allergies and how my lungs worked. My siblings could not catch asthma from me. I had it, and it was my body's problem and my body's condition. Now my sisters, they could still play with me. They weren't worried about catching asthma from me because it was my body's disease. Now as you get older, asthma in a lot of cases fades or starts to go away, and that's typical, that happens for it. Sometimes you can have a disease that doesn't go away as you get older though. So lupus, this is whenever your immune system attacks your body's tissue. Basically your immune system gets confused and thinks that other parts of the body are dangerous and starts to attack them. So that's the reason why lupus is considered a non-infectious disease. You can't catch that because your immune system has gotten confused now and thinks that other parts of your body are dangerous. Heart disease, so like heart attack or arteriosclerosis, we'll talk more about those later on. Sickle cell anemia, sometimes people, they're born where their blood cells are not the proper shape. We looked at this previously, that a lot of cases your blood cells look kind of like donuts, to where they have that outside and then they have kind of a dip in the center. That's to help them to carry hemoglobin or carry oxygen. Some people's blood cells, they're born as more of a sickle shape or more of a crescent moon shape. Should have left more space over here. I'll draw it over here. So their blood cells look more like this. And so because of that, since they have that different shape, they call that sickle cell anemia. It looks kind of like a sickle or kind of like a crescent moon. And some people are just born with that. And so because that's part of their DNA, that's not a disease you can catch. You're either born with it or you're not. So that's sickle cell anemia. Your book talks a little bit more about it later on though. So you can also have diabetes. Now remember, diabetes, that's whenever your body doesn't respond to insulin properly, so you can't catch that from someone else. That's your body's disease. And then also scurvy. Alright, so thinking it through, do you know how you get scurvy? It used to be a problem for sailors back in the day. They would get scurvy but not getting enough vitamin C. So that's one of the reasons as to how come you want to eat a lot of vitamin C's, because you don't want scurvy. It's not fun. So make a note for that. These are not caused by pathogens, and they don't spread from person to person. Your body basically either has a mistake in some cases, or you're having malnutrition, like for scurvy. That's whenever you don't eat enough of something. Now remember, what's malnutrition? That's whenever you have a disease or condition that's caused by poor nutrition, where you're not eating enough of something or your body isn't responding properly to it. Your book points out non-infectious diseases result from problems in the body caused by improper nutrition, malfunctioning cells, exposure to harmful substances. You could have hereditary information like your DNA or physical injury. There's a lot of things that cause a non-infectious disease. Like for example, cancer. You can't catch cancer from somebody else. It's just your body's, their cell's DNA is now messed up. And so because of that, that's why they're making cancerous cells. But you can't catch cancer from somebody else. If you know someone that has cancer, pray for them, but you don't have to worry about catching it from them. So those are non-infectious diseases. Alright, so how does a disease spread now? So there's three different things that your book talks about. Your book talks about how you can have unsanitary habits, and that can spread a disease. Most infectious diseases can spread through infected people and animals or contaminated food or water. So that's part of the reason why, particularly with the whole coronavirus pandemic, as a lot of you are aware, that you want to make sure you're covering your sneezes and coughs. You don't want to be touching your face, like your mouth, nose, your eyes, and then touching other surfaces in case you have it. And so because of that, that's one of the reasons why you can have the virus spread so much. So that's probably the reason why your book points out that you want to have just good sanitary habits, like wash your hands, don't touch your face as much as possible. You don't have to wear a mask, but that can help out as well for it. So there are several things you can do to make sure that you're not spreading on the disease if you're sick or if you're not feeling well. There's also a couple different other ways you can catch it as well. So a fomite, make a note of what a fomite is. That's whenever you have someone, they sneeze on their hand, or maybe they wipe their nose on their hand, and then they touch a doorknob or they touch the desk, and now those germs, the virus, is sitting on the desk or on the doorknob. That's one reason why we go through and we spray down or wipe down the desk, so that way we don't have a fomite. We don't have the viruses living on the desk or on the doorknobs. That's the reason why he's trying to slow it down as much as possible. So we call that a fomite though. That's whenever someone, they might not have caught it from someone directly, but if they have someone who is sick and they sneeze in their hand and then they touch the doorknob, if you have a healthy person come up and touch the doorknob and then they touch their face, now they have the virus on the inside of their body. So that's probably the reason as to how come you don't want to sneeze into your hand, because you have all of the germs and viruses on your hand now, and that's gross. And so you want to make sure you want to sneeze into a napkin or a tissue. A lot of people will tell you to sneeze into your elbow, because you don't use your elbow to touch a lot of surfaces. So that's the reason why people tell you to do that. Alright, a vector, this is an infected animal. So a vector, this is an animal that is carrying the disease. So your book lists off several examples for it. So rabies is the major one. This is whenever you have an animal, if they have rabies, if the virus is in their saliva, and if they bite you, they can transmit the virus into your body that way for it. So you can have rabies, this transmitted into a person this way. Now rabies is kind of scary, but we have shots and vaccinations to help out people with it today. So that way you don't die from it. In some cases, if your animal gets sick, and once they start showing symptoms of it, in some cases there's not a whole lot that the doctor can do to help you. And so because of that, in some cases, if your pet gets this rabies, the doctor will tell you it's better to go ahead and just put the animal down, because once the animal gets it, there's not a whole lot that they can do. They can do something sometimes, but not all the time. Now, if a person catches it, if they catch it early on, they can give you shots, so that way, so you won't get the actual disease of rabies. So make a note for this though. This is whenever you have rabies. This is spread from an infected animal to a person. You can also have insects that carry disease, like fleas. They can carry the plague. Mosquitoes transmit malaria. Ticks carry Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So that's the reason why you can have an animal transmit diseases as well. So again, vector, this is an infected animal that is transmitting a disease. You can also have it to where you have contaminated food and water. Sometimes there's food or water that isn't cleaned or that isn't cooked properly, and so there's bacteria or viruses on the inside of it. And so the pathogens can grow and pollute the water. So, getting into the next section. Oops, wrong direction. So you want to make sure that you want to cook your food or clean your water thoroughly. You don't want to have bacteria or viruses on the inside of it. So diseases that spread through unclean water and food include typhoid fever, botulism, and salmonella poisoning. So botulism and salmonella poisoning are two technical names for food poisoning. This is one reason why if you eat a food, if it tastes weird, probably don't continue eating it. Now, I don't mean like it tastes just different to where like you don't like the taste. But if you know how it's normally supposed to taste, you know, this has an odd taste to it, something doesn't feel right, then you probably don't want to continue eating it, because it could have bacteria growing on the inside of it. And this is the reason why, if you eat it, you can get food poisoning, which is not fun. I've had food poisoning twice, at least as far as I know of. It's not fun, it's not a good day. So, this is examples of, you can get other bacteria and viruses from contaminated food and water though. So just pointing out that typhoid fever, botulism, salmonella poisoning, you can get it from eating dirty food. This is from dirty water basically, and then not cooking your food properly. So there are various ways to prevent the spread of infectious disease. One of the major ones, good sanitary habits. Your book points out, wash your hands with wash your hands with soap, or if you want to use antibacterial like fluid like Germ-X, that works as well for it. Stay home if you're not feeling well. Now, we are much more aware of this because of coronavirus happening and all the pandemic stuff. But if you're not feeling well, it's okay to stay home and to miss school if you are really sick. Now, most of you know that you're probably tired of staying at home for the past 3 weeks, and so you want to come back to school, and I understand that. But if you're really not feeling good, it's okay to stay home, so that way you can rest your body and help your body to get better sooner, and also keep other people from getting sick as well. So in some cases, you might want to wear a mask out in public. Now, over here in Columbus, Georgia, you have to wear a mask if you go into a store. But if you're not feeling good, you can also wear a mask as well. Other countries do this to where if someone, if they're not feeling good, they decide that they're going to wear a mask so they don't accidentally spread their virus or spread their bacteria to other people. So you can also prevent it by avoiding contamination or by disinfecting contaminated objects, so cleaning objects. That's some reasons why we use the Clorox wipes, or we use different types of Germ-X to wipe down the desks and doorknobs, so that way if there is bacteria or virus on them, that'll kill it and that'll get rid of it. And then also you want to cook and clean your water. Your book points out that if you live in a city, the city already cleans the water for you. But in some cases, you want to make sure though, like if you're going on a hike, you don't want to drink just the water out of a stream. Even though it looks clean, there might be bacteria or other stuff on the inside of it. So you want to make sure you're only drinking clean water, and then also you want to cook your food properly. That's how come for a lot of pieces like hamburgers, you have to cook it until there's no red or there's no like heat coloring on the inside. Because of how a hamburger is made, it can have bacteria built up on the inside if it's not cooked all the way through. Steak's a little bit different. That's like on steak, you can still have that reddish or pink color and still be okay. That's what it means by just cooking and cleaning your food properly. So, cook and clean, cook your food properly or clean your water, clean different surfaces, good sanitary habits. Vaccination is the last one. We've already talked about this on page 133, that a vaccine is just a substance that stimulates a pathogen. So remember, this is an acquired immunity. So a vaccination or a vaccine introduces the virus either in a weakened version or in a completely dead version. So that way your body has practice fighting it. Now once your body fights it, your body remembers it. Do you remember what type of cells there are and that remembers it? It's a type of lymphocyte that might help you out. Remember, it's the B cells. So because of that, they can help you to remember ooh, that's that virus. It's that type of flu. I can catch that I know how to fight that. So a vaccination can help you and help your body to remember the virus, so that way you can fight it off a little bit easier. Alright, so just make a note of those things. So good sanitary habits, you want to clean your area, so clean your room. That'll also help you to not catch bacteria and viruses as well. So clean surfaces, and then also a vaccination can also help you out. Alright, we're going to go ahead and we're going to stop there. So your homework for tonight is to read pages 134 through 138, 134 through 138. And you want to answer on page 138, 5 through 8, and Thought Provoker. So 5 through 8 and Thought Provoker. Also, don't forget the background is due on Monday. So it's the first day that y'all are coming back. I want both copies, remember. I need the copy that's for the judges and the academic fair that doesn't have your name on it, and then I need the other copy as well that does have your name on the title page. So that way I can grade it. So I need both copies on Monday. Bring both of them to me. So if you have any questions about the background paper, make sure you ask your parents to email me so that way I can help you out as much as you can. So, again, all of your homework all together, read pages 134 to 138, answer on page 138, 5 through 8, and Thought Provoker. Bring both copies of the background paper. Don't forget, have a great weekend.